Very good morning, students. After learning the bony features of the tibia, now we come to the muscular and ligamentous attachment onto the tibia. Okay, as I said that this tibia belongs to that of the left side. Okay, so if we will see the attachment onto the upper end of the tibia, this is the medial condyle and this is the lateral condyle of the tibia. This is the tibial tuberosity. Let us see the attachment onto the superior surface of the medial. This is the medial condyle superior surface and this is the lateral condyle of the superior surface. This is the intercondylar eminence, which is having a lateral tubercle and a medial tubercle. In front of that, this is the anterior intercondylar rough area and this is the posterior intercondylar rough area. This is smooth surface of the medial condyle is covered by in living state by the cartilage, articular cartilage. Okay. Now see that this lateral surface of the lateral condyle, I mean to say superior surface of the lateral condyle is almost circular, and this is the medial condyle which is oval and the larger, okay, as compared to that of the lateral condyle. Now with the help of a diagram, I will show you the attachment of the anterior intercondylar area and then I will show you the attachment onto the posterior intercondylar area. These attachments are very important and usually asked in Viva, okay. Now let's go to the diagram and I will tell you the attachment of medial and the lateral condyles, okay, from its superior aspect. Let us see this diagram. Now in this diagram, you can see that this is the superior surface of the left tibia, medial condyle, and that this is the articular surface of the lateral condyle. Now, if we see to begin with, you should note the attachment of the menisci, which are fibrocartilaginous disc, okay. So if I draw the menisci here with the help of a color pencil, then this, let us begin with the lateral menisci, okay. The lateral menisci here in the intercondylar area gives attachment to its anterior horn, and then there is a posterior horn of the lateral menisci, and if I draw it covering onto the surface as it covers onto the margin of the this articular surface, so this will be the lateral menisci, okay, of the knee joint, okay, and this is the anterior horn and this is the posterior horn. If I draw the medial menisci now, second, this will begin from here. This is the anterior horn going into the anterior intercondylar area, and then this menisci will go and gets attachment, just its posterior horn will get attachment just posterior to the posterior horn of the lateral menisci. So these are the two menisci, medial and lateral menisci of the knee joint, okay. So these are the roughly drawn medial and lateral. So you can note that the two horns of anterior and posterior horns of lateral, they are very close to each other, okay, in the intercondylar area. Medial one is larger and slightly open up. Now then we will see that how the cruciate ligaments are attached, okay, how the cruciate ligaments. The cruciate ligament I will just draw here with the green color here. See this is the anterior cruciate ligament and here is the posterior cruciate ligament attached. So how you will see, let me bring it close to the camera and then you can see the attachment in the anterior intercondylar area. Anterior horn of the medial meniscus, then the anterior cruciate ligament, and then the anterior horn of the lateral, I mean to say menisci. So the anterior horn of the medial menisci, then anterior cruciate ligament, then this is the anterior horn of the lateral menisci. Then in the posterior intercondylar area, this is the posterior horn of the lateral meniscus then the posterior horn of the medial meniscus, and then the posterior cruciate ligament. When I was a student, our teachers were telling this attachment to be remembered as Medical College, Lucknow. M for medial meniscus, C for cruciate ligament college, and the Lucknow means the lateral meniscus. And in this way, then you can make out Lucknow Medical College. Like that, you can remember the attachment onto the upper surface of the medial and lateral condyles of tibia. Now let us go to the upper end, other attachment onto the upper end. If you see the attachment onto upper end, then you will see that this attachment, let me show you, this was the tibial tuberosity, and this tibial tuberosity gives attachment to the strong ligament called as the ligamentum patelli, which is the tendon through the patella of quadriceps femoris. The lower part is subcutaneous, which is in relation to the bursa, which is interposed between this bone and that of the skin. So the upper part gives attachment to the ligamentum patelli. Then on the anterior aspect, this is the site for attachment of the patellar retinacula. Medial and lateral patellar retinaculum are attached here. Now onto this is the lateral condyle is here. See, because this is the medial, malleolus is here. So this is the lateral condyle is here. This part gives attachment to the iliotibial tract, okay, which comes from the iliac crest, iliotibial tract. Now, if you go to the medial condyle, because this is the medial condyle of the, tibia, and here I have showed you during the last video that this on posterior aspect there is a horizontal groove, and this groove gives attachment to the semimembranosus muscle. Okay, so this is the semimembranosus muscle in the medial condyle, posterior and medial aspect. Okay, this horizontal groove. So it is semimembranosus muscle. And then another muscle here onto the posterior aspect of the upper end is that there is a soleal line, and this soleal line is an oblique line, and this soleal line is here. This soleal line gives attachment, means origin to a muscle that is called as soleus, which is the powerful muscle of the posterior aspect of the leg, that is the calf muscle. Just above this soleus attachment, this is a triangular area, and on that we have learned that this triangular area gives attachment, that means insertion to a muscle that is called as popliteus. So this is the area which gives whole triangular area. This is the insertion to the muscle called as popliteus. Okay, it is the popliteus muscle is here. Now the articular capsule you can draw by the margin of this medial condyle, and then it will come just deeper to the patellar, medial and lateral patellar retinaculum. That will be the articular capsule, and then going on to the lateral condyles, okay, on to the lateral condyle, like that, very close to the margin of articular margin onto the superior surface. So let us come to the, since this is the medial condyle, let us come to this is the medial surface between the sharp anterior border, and this is the medial border, okay, and this is that subcutaneous area, okay, that is called as the medial surface, okay, and it doesn't give origin to any of the muscle, but it gives insertion to some of the tendon which are near the upper end. This gives insertion to the three muscle, okay, from anterior to posterior side, and these are three muscles are sartorius, gracilis and semitendinosus, because semimembranous was here in this groove. This is the semitendinosus. So sartorius, gracilis and semitendinosus. You should remember the sequence of these muscles. Right, otherwise there is nothing on this medial surface except the attachment of these three tendons, which is subcutaneous. Now, then this is the anterior border and this is the interosseous or the lateral border, and this surface is the lateral surface, and this surface gives in its upper two-third part, it gives attachment to a muscle called as tibialis anterior. That is origin. Okay, that's why I am drawing it with the pink color. So this is the between anterior and lateral border. This is the tibialis anterior. Okay, this is the tibialis anterior. Let us go to the posterior surface which lies between the medial border and the lateral border. Okay, so this was anterior, this was medial, and this is lateral or interosseous border. And here in the posterior surface, a vertical line will divide from soleal line downward. Okay, I will just draw this vertical line here just to show you, which is not very well marked in this bone. This is a vertical line, okay, and this vertical line will divide this posterior surface into medial field or medial area and the lateral area. The medial area will give origin. Thus, this is the vertical line, and the medial area, which is towards the medial malleolus, this part, okay, of the posterior surface, it will give origin to the flexor digitorum longus, and then the lateral area will give origin to the tibialis posterior in its upper two-thirds of the posterior surface. Okay, let us come to the particular features of the lower end. Let us see, this is the anterior aspect of the tibia, this is the medial malleolus, and this is the anterior surface of the lower end. The articular capsule is attached very close to the margin of this lower end onto the medial malleolus and then onto the posterior aspect of the lower end of the tibia. Okay, let us come to see as there are no muscles which are taking origin from the lower one-third, or no muscles which are attaching or getting insertion on this. Okay, we will see the relations of the tendons and blood vessels, and now on to the anterior surface of the lower end of the tibia. The most medially, see, this is since the medial malleolus is here. Okay, the most medially will be the relation of tibialis anterior, then it will be the extensor hallucis longus, then it will come the blood vessel, anterior tibial artery, and then the deep peroneal nerve will be here, and then it will come extensor digitorum tendon, and then it will be the tendon. So many tendons, one artery, one vein, and the nerve are related. I think it is better if I will draw you, this structure from medial to lateral side. I hope that you will understood better. Similarly, we will, with the help of diagram, you can see on the posterior aspect, that is the groove for the tendons, mostly for tibialis posterior, and sometime for the flexor digitorum longus and the tibialis posterior tendon. I will show you by drawing a diagram all these relations, but before that I go to the diagram. This is the lateral aspect of the lower end, where it is the fibular notch is here, where there is the attachment of a strong interosseous ligament of the inferior tibiofibular ligament, which is a fibrous joint between the lower end of the tibia and lower end of the fibula. So interosseous tibiofibular ligament is attached in this fibular notch, very strong fibrous ligament. Okay, so I will tell you about the diagrams here, and let me draw this diagram. This is the anterior aspect of the lower end of the femur. Let me just, I hope you are able to see, and I will draw these diagrams with the help of the green color. Okay, now this is the tendon of the most medially, the tendon of the tibialis anterior. Tibialis anterior, please note down if you are having. Then this tendon which is lateral to the tibialis anterior is tendon of the extensor hallucis longus going to the great toe, extensor hallucis longus. And then there is an artery, the anterior tibial artery, which is related here, okay? And just lateral to it is the presence of a nerve, that is the deep peroneal nerve. So this in black color I am drawing the nerve, the deep peroneal nerve, the anterior tibial artery and deep peroneal nerve. Now there are two more tendons which will lie lateral to this nerve and vessels, and this is the extensor digitorum longus. Extensor digitorum longus, and lastly on the lateralmost side it is the peroneus tertius. So many structures are in relation to the lower end of the tibia. If we go to the lower end of the tibia from its posterior aspect, and then in the posterior aspect what we will see, that there was a groove here. See this? This was the groove on the posterior aspect of the medial malleolus was here, and this groove was here, and in this there is the relationship of the tendon is there, because the most medially is the tendon of the flexor digitorum longus, flexor digitorum longus. But sometimes this is crossed by, in this groove itself, okay, by the tendon which lies onto the lateral side, and it is the tendon of the tibialis posterior, okay, it is the tendon of the tibialis posterior. So the tendon of tibialis posterior becomes medial, and then flexor digitorum longus becomes the lateral tendon, okay. So sometime crossing takes place within this groove, okay. Then again there is an artery and a nerve which is lying just lateral to it, and I will draw this artery, and this is the posterior tibial artery. This is the posterior tibial artery, and this with the black color I will draw the nerve, the posterior tibial nerve. Now, okay, after this posterior tibial nerve, there will be one more muscle, that is the flexor hallucis longus going to the great toe. Flexor hallucis longus is the tendon which is going. So this is anterior aspect of the lower end of the tibia, which is in relation to the tendons and blood vessels and nerve, and this is the posterior aspect of this in relation to this. I think this completes the bony attachment, that is muscular attachment and ligamentous attachment of the tibia. Now I come to the ossification. Let us see the ossification of this bone. This is a long bone and it ossifies in cartilage, okay, in the, into the it is the 7th week of intrauterine life. 7th week of intrauterine life, there appears a primary center in the cartilaginous model, okay, because it is an endochondral ossification, and in the after 7th week the bone starts forming after replacing this cartilage, okay. So this is the primary center which will give rise to the bone diaphysis, okay. The bone formed by primary center is diaphysis. Okay, still the ends are cartilaginous, and if at the birth if you will take the x-ray, then only the central portion of the shaft will be bony, the rest of the two ends will be cartilaginous. Then soon after the birth, okay, or very close, within a weeks of the birth, there will appear another center of ossification that is called as secondary center of the ossification at the upper end. This is the upper end of the, and this is appearing just after birth, just after, because the lower end of the femur center was just before birth, and this is after birth, okay. So this will form the bone of the upper end of the tibia, okay, and this is by secondary center. Then at the age of 1 year, okay, the first year or during first year or at the end of the first year, just after end, there will appear another secondary center for the lower end of the tibia, and this will form the bone for lower end. And then there will remain the cartilaginous plate, what is called as the epiphyseal, which will help to grow at both the ends, okay. And then ultimately at the age of 16 year of age, okay, the primary and secondary center, they will fuse, and then the lower end will stop growing, okay. But for the upper end, it is around 18 years of age. The primary and secondary center, epiphysis and diaphyseal bone will fuse, and bone will stop the ossification. So the center which was the first to appear was just after birth, was first to appear for upper end, and it was last to unite, that is 18 years, okay. This was 16. So the upper end of the tibia is the growing end, and as the rule, the nutrient foramina should direct opposite to that of the growing end. So I will show you the nutrient foramina if I can get in this, okay. Let us see this. Yes, it is here. Can you see that? See this? This is the upper end, and then this is the nutrient foramina, and its direction is towards the lower end, which always direct in the opposite direction of the growing. So the upper end is the growing end, and that's why the nutrient foramina is directed downwards, right? This completes the bony attachment, muscular attachment and ligamentous attachment and ossification of the bone tibia. The next video will be on the fibular bone, okay, or the fibula. Thank you very much for watching this video.